Common cybercrime techniques and tools. Have you ever wondered how cybercriminals actually carry out their attacks? How they go from quietly gathering information to taking full control of a system or stealing sensitive data? In this video, we're going to explore the most common cybercrime techniques and tools, as well as the typical workflow attackers follow when executing their operations. By understanding how these attacks work, you'll not only be able to identify risks more effectively, but also know how to protect yourself, your organization, or your systems from becoming a victim. Most cyber attacks follow a structured sequence of stages, often referred to as the attack lifecycle or kill chain. It begins with reconnaissance, where attackers gather information about their target either passively or actively. They might scan public websites, social media profiles, or network configurations to identify vulnerabilities. Once they have enough information, they move to weaponization, preparing the tools or payloads that will be used to compromise the target. This could be malware designed to steal information, ransomware to encrypt files, or phishing templates tailored for a specific victim. The next stage is delivery, which is the method used to reach the target. This could involve sending malicious emails, planting infected files on a website, using USB drives, or even leveraging compromised supply chains. Once the attack reaches its target, exploitation occurs. This is when the payload or exploit is executed to gain initial access, often taking advantage of vulnerable software, unpatched systems, or even human behavior through social engineering. After the attacker gains access, installation occurs, where persistence mechanisms like backdoors, scheduled tasks, or registry modifications are deployed, so the attacker can maintain long-term access. The attacker then establishes command and control, or C2, which is a remote channel to communicate with and manage the compromised system. Finally, the attacker carries out actions on objectives, which could include stealing data, moving laterally through the network, sabotaging systems, committing financial fraud, or holding data for ransom. Understanding this life cycle is crucial because it helps defenders map detection controls to each stage, whether it's monitoring network traffic for reconnaissance activity or using endpoint detection tools to spot installation attempts. Among the most common techniques used by attackers, malware plays a central role. This includes viruses that corrupt files, worms that self-propagate, Trojans that hide inside legitimate applications, ransomware that encrypts data for extortion, and spyware that silently collects information. Malware is usually delivered via email attachments, malicious downloads, infected websites, or compromised supply chains, and sometimes even via removable media. Indicators that malware is present include unexpected file encryption, new or unsigned processes running on the system, unusual outbound network connections, spikes in CPU or disk usage, or disabled security controls. Mitigations include application whitelisting, timely patching, endpoint detection and response, regular backups, user training, applying least privilege principles, and network segmentation. Phishing and spear phishing are other major techniques. These attacks rely on fraudulent emails or messages that impersonate trusted entities to trick recipients into revealing credentials, clicking malicious links, or opening infected attachments. Spear phishing is more targeted and personalized, often tailored to specific individuals. Warning signs include misspelled sender addresses, mismatched URLs, unexpected attachments, and unusual requests for credentials or fund transfers. Mitigating these attacks requires multi-factor authentication, proper email filtering using technologies, anti-phishing training, URL inspection, and attachment sandboxing. Social engineering extends beyond emails. It is the manipulation of human behavior to bypass technical controls. Techniques like pretexting involve crafting convincing stories to gain trust. Phishing uses phone calls to manipulate victims, and in-person deception relies on physical interactions to gain unauthorized access. Indicators include unusual requests that bypass normal procedures, or pressure tactics asking for confidential actions through non-standard channels. Mitigation strategies involve strict verification procedures, staff training, escalation protocols, and callback procedures to confirm requests. Credential attacks are another common method. These include brute force attacks, where automated tools try many password combinations, credential stuffing, where leaked credentials are reused across multiple sites, and password spraying, which uses low and slow attempts to evade detection. Warning signs include multiple failed login attempts, logins from unusual locations, or sudden spikes in authentication failures. Mitigation includes multi-factor authentication, rate limiting, account lockouts, anomaly detection, enforcing strong password policies, monitoring breaches, and using secure identity services like SAML or OAuth. Man-in-the-middle attacks, including session hijacking, involve intercepting or tampering with communications between parties. Attackers might use techniques like ARP poisoning, rogue Wi-Fi networks, HTTPS downgrades, or session token theft. Indicators include TLS certificate warnings, unexpected login prompts, abnormal latency, duplicated MAC addresses, or unusual proxying. Countermeasures involve enforcing TLS everywhere, certificate pinning for critical applications, strong network segmentation, VPN usage policies, monitoring for ARP anomalies, and secure session management practices such as short session lifetimes and token revocation. Web application attacks exploit vulnerabilities in online platforms such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and cross-site request forgery. SQL injection allows attackers to manipulate databases through flawed input validation. XSS lets attackers execute scripts in users' browsers, and CSRF forces authenticated actions without the user's consent. Warning signs include unusual database queries, anomalous HTTP requests, unexpected web content changes, or spikes in database errors. Mitigation involves input validation, output encoding, prepared statements, secure session handling, web application firewalls, secure development lifecycles, code reviews, and regular penetration testing. Distributed denial of service attacks flood systems with traffic to exhaust resources and make services unavailable. Indicators include sudden traffic spikes, bandwidth saturation, service outages, or abnormal patterns from multiple sources. Mitigations include DDoS protection services, traffic filtering, rate limiting, scalable architectures like CDNs, and coordination with upstream providers along with incident playbooks. Botnets and automated exploitation involve networks of compromised machines controlled centrally. They are used for scanning, brute force attacks, spam, and DDoS. Exploit kits automate the discovery and exploitation of client vulnerabilities. Indicators include outbound connections to known C2 infrastructure, suspicious periodic activity, high volumes of outgoing emails, or abnormal port scanning. Mitigation strategies include egress filtering, threat intelligence feeds, host hardening, network segmentation, and behavioral detection through endpoint detection tools. Supply chain attacks compromise trusted third parties, like software vendors or service providers, to reach target organizations. Indicators include unexpected code changes from updates, anomalous behavior post-update, or vendor compromise reports. Mitigation requires strict vendor risk management, code signing verification, software bill of materials reviews, thorough testing before deployment, and isolation of third-party systems. IoT and embedded device exploitation targets devices with weak security, such as default passwords or unpatched firmware. Indicators include unknown IP communications, abnormal network traffic, or repeated failed login attempts. Mitigation involves maintaining an inventory of devices, changing default credentials, disabling unnecessary services, network microsegmentation, and enforcing firmware update policies. Finally, advanced persistent threats represent long-term, stealthy intrusions often associated with nation-state actors. They employ custom tools, legitimate utilities for malicious purposes, and lateral movement across networks to achieve strategic objectives like espionage or sabotage. Indicators include slow and deliberate exfiltration of data, use of novel malware, or unusual use of legitimate administrative tools. Mitigation involves threat hunting, privileged access management, robust logging and monitoring, long-term log retention, and intelligence sharing across organizations. Cybercriminals also rely on specialized tools and infrastructure. These include remote access Trojans for persistent control, exploit kits for client-side vulnerabilities, keyloggers and credential stealers, anonymizing frameworks such as Tor and VPNs, botnets, packers and obfuscators to evade detection, phishing kits, password cracking tools, and even legitimate administrative utilities that are misused for persistence or lateral movement. To make this more tangible, consider a few illustrative examples. In a ransomware attack via phishing, a finance officer might click on a malicious invoice attachment, causing a Trojan to download a ransomware payload that encrypts shared drives. Indicators here include new scheduled tasks and rapidly renamed files. Mitigations involve email sandboxing, endpoint detection, and offline backups to restore data. In a supply chain compromise, a vendor update introduces a backdoor across multiple customer environments, which can be detected through baseline monitoring and mitigated through code signing verification and staggered deployment. In credential stuffing attacks, attackers reuse leaked credentials to access an e-commerce admin portal and issue fraudulent refunds. Multi-factor authentication and anomaly detection can prevent these exploits. Understanding these techniques, attack stages, and tools gives us the knowledge to build stronger defenses, detect attacks earlier, and respond more effectively. Cybercrime may evolve, but so can our strategies for countering it. If this video helped you understand how cybercriminals operate, from their step-by-step attack lifecycle to the tools and techniques they use, make sure you don't miss the next video in this series. If you found this content valuable, like the video, share it with others who need to stay protected, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you're always updated when new videos drop. Building your cyber awareness is the first step towards staying one step ahead of attackers.